we rarely pause to consider as to whether there needs to be a prerequisite before the Dhamma. We usually take it for granted, yes. Like I have the interest in the Dhamma, I want to study Buddhism, I have made the decision to come to the Dhamma and to practice sitting meditation, or to read this or that book, or to follow this or that teacher, attend retreats, etc. So that itself is my prerequisite being met. Of course, there's nothing that I have come across that looks something similar to that as far as like something written. So this is an unspoken, accepted reality. Unspoken rule, if you will. And just because of that, I would say, the person holding on to their interest, it might be a fervent interest, it might be a very strong Dhammachanda, but that is there for a purpose. That is there because of a reason, rather. Something deeper. The fervent desire is being heated up, intensified by something. That something is Samvega, the urgency to be practicing. When a person has found out that, or they've been diagnosed with some severe illness, let's say a brain tumor, that changes everything for them. For many people, of course, it's terrifying. I've met a person once who came to me relatively, she was very young, she was in her 20s, late 20s, and she had been diagnosed, not with cancer, they didn't know for sure, but she definitely knew that there was, the doctors had told her that she has some type of a tumor in her brain. Before the diagnosis, she was just a normal person, living in Los Angeles. She had her interests and very much driven to make money, to wear her, high fashion, expensive stuff, things like that. Interest, that everything else that goes along with somebody living in Los Angeles of that age group, somewhat affluent. But the moment that she had been told by the doctors that she was going to have surgery, that a portion of her hair was going to be shaved off, her long, what she considered beautiful hair, to be cut and shaved off, that portion. And then they had to operate. She was terrified, to say the least. There was a sense of urgency to get to the bottom of it, to find out, to reach safety. That is another definition that I could use for Samvega. To reach safety from where you are. Imagine yourself not just floating, but being splashed around, tossed and turned, flipped upside down, inside the water and above it, and by the storms out in a tumultuous sea. And you can see the shore, the island of safety across from you, but it's far. But it's reachable. You can swim for it. You can get to it. But you have to swim for it. Why? Because your tiny little boat has holes in it. And it's filling up with water. Or your boat has entirely flipped over and all you have are your floaties or something. You're hanging by a thread or grabbing hold of a piece of wood or a log or something that is floating and allowing you. So basically, it's a matter of survival. I saw that gaze in that woman's eyes. Coming to the Dhamma is not enough. Practicing the Dhamma is not enough. I know I've mentioned it so many times in so many different talks that it's all about the authenticity of the practice and how much you put into it. That's going to give you the appropriate outcome. If your efforts are lukewarm, weak, mediocre, you will get mediocre results. Which means you're still going to be left there in the storm. The only way you're going to get to safety is if your efforts are adequate to get you there. Now that effort is what I'm talking about. The effort is not going to come by sheer willpower only. You need something. And this is what I wanted to dedicate this brief talk for, because the question came up, right? As to individuals who come to the Dhamma or have an interest for it or have been practicing, so, and usually people will think that it is the technique or is the teacher. You might have the lousiest, most despicable character for a teacher. They do exist, in abundance in the world of Dhamma today. But the Dhamma, if it's still there, that's a wonderful situation. At least you have the Dhamma. But is that enough? No, it's not enough. Your dedicated practice in itself is not enough. Well, what is it then you need to do? Practice includes sila, samadhi, panya. Practicing of virtue. Practicing of your sati, sampajanya, meaning your samadhi, your cultivation of mind, your meditation is necessary. Developing wisdom in you, panya, through insights, as you go back to the suttas, is a must. Then, so how come these are not enough? Well, vega is necessary. That is the prerequisite for the Dhamma. So before the Dhamma, there needs to be vega. Now, does it always happen like that? No. Let's be honest. Sometimes the person has suddenly woken up to some experiences they've had in the past, where they have a love for the Dhamma, a desire to know. Some questions come up. So things are not going to be coming in certain packages. So we get glimpses here and there. Sometimes it's a world situation. Sometimes we see somebody in pain and suddenly it triggers something. That triggering is the spark, which then must must bring up in us a sense of urgency. Not just being mesmerized or touched by a sentence by Lord Buddha or the noble disciples and say, wow, this is beautiful, or this is deep, this is deep. You have so many countless scholars, PhD students and professors and things like that, who are so far from the Dhamma, and they think that they have it. They think that they're actually genuinely practicing the path of Lord Buddha, while they go on living their lives, their academic lives, or even monastics living their lives as monks. I mean, come on, you're a bhikkhu, this and that, living in a monastery, so you must be practicing. Well, if there is no vega, there is no practice. That's what I'm trying to say. It all comes down to vega. If vega is there, then the person is going to crawl through mountains and valleys, cliffs. They're going to swim and cross oceans to truly do what is necessary. But you have individuals who bend over backwards when trying to defend their individuality, their likes and dislikes, usually the likes, and highlighting the dislikes, and they stay away from that. Why? Because a certain teaching or a teacher rubs them the wrong way, as they say in English. They don't like the delivery method of this particular teacher. Oh, this teacher is a pretty, strict, or, he's too rough in his expressions. Well, I don't feel like da-da-da-da. Many of these people today, living today and practicing, thinking that they're practicing, they might be practicing for decades, by the way. They could not withstand Lord Buddha. Did you know that? They could not tolerate Lord Buddha. But when you add the factor of time, things become sweeter and more romantic, more idealistic, and more lovable and cuddly. Lord Buddha was authentic, was real, more real than you and I. He wasn't crude, but he was real. That means he would speak what was necessary, say things that were necessary to shake the person to realize the tumor in the brain, just like that woman. By the way, that woman just dropped, she went and got the surgery done and everything went great, so she was back in being, living the LA life. Just went back, submerged herself back into that world of wealth, money, looks. This is it, this is life. Because when she came to me, she was interested in meditation. She was interested, how can I help my situation? How can I make it better so that I'm interested. Poof. Her vega was simply for the flesh. Our vega has to be beyond that. Unfortunately, you have individuals who look at the Dhamma as a new thing. It might be a political thing even, to try to create some type of a balance in an unbalanced world. Lord Buddha says this again and again in the suttas, to live evenly in an uneven world. He uses the term of, like, when you're walking on a terrain that is uneven. In those days, they didn't have proper roads like we do today. Most parts of India. So there would be ditches and potholes and things, and then rocks protruding. So if you didn't know, you're also going to be going up and down, topsy-turvy. But an arahant is someone who's walking on that path but is not affected by it. He doesn't become similar to those people, similar to the environment they're in. So the Dhamma can work wonderfully to give you a sense of balance, but this is not something intellectual. It has to come through your practice, where you are being put through the furnace of life, especially today, in a world that is unjust, that is unbalanced, that is corrupt, that is full of lies and deceptions. And the majority are just deceived, and they're perfectly fine being deceived. They have these lollipops and cookies and candy and bonbons and all that to keep them active, actively engaged. But that's not just the world, because you have also the world of Dhamma, followers and students and teachers of Dhamma who are in that as well. And they have taken the Dhamma as another thing that you do, almost like a hobby. There's no Vega. So this is not something that you could do cumulatively. You cannot just expect the people around you to also be having the same level of dedication, because everybody's different. Your past history is different than the past history of those that are around you or you associate with, or even your teachers. Meaning your drive, the fuel that drives you, which I hear is not, I'm not referring to virya. Of course, virya is the delivery method in a sense, but Vega is the thing that's missing. So before the Dhamma, there needs to be Vega, plain and simple. And then you cannot make any excuses. Well, the teacher is doing this, well, the teaching is this, or it's kind of antiquated, it's too old, or it doesn't work in this time and period in world history, and socially it doesn't work like that. No. That means there isn't Vega. When a person says or starts to negotiate with the teacher about what they will practice and won't, when they sit down and negotiate with the teacher, as if the teacher has any vested interest in this, about the severity, quote unquote, of the precept, one precept versus another, or the need for them to have sati with them throughout the day. And the student says, well, Bhante, you don't understand, I have to work. As if sati is some other thing that you do. But that's what people have been doing, and that's why I was saying it's like a hobby for many people. When they go to the bathroom, they dropped sati. When they go to the bedroom, they drop sati. When they go to work or drive the car or get on the bus, they've dropped sati. Or they've dropped sila. Can you work as if there's a tumor in your heart, tumor in your brain, tumor in your eyeballs? Can you live like that? That is urgency. So you don't have the luxury to sit down and complain or to stall, because the ocean, the sea that's slapping you around, the tumultuous, terribly, powerfully thunderous ocean, with its whirlpools and everything that's pulling you in, and we didn't even say anything about sharks. Sharks don't care if there's a thunderstorm, If they're going to come and they're hungry, it's their domain. They'll come and snatch a piece of you. So you need to have that understanding that this is a very dire situation I'm in. Unfortunately, we are seeking the pillows and the soft covers and nice sheets to kind of be wrapped around with and comfortable in that sofa called life, or a career, or a loved one, or a family, or a nice place to live. That's not what life is for. For the person who has seen life for what it truly is. They have seen that there's a bunch of holes in the bottom of the boat they're in, and it's getting fuller and fuller by the millisecond. So they're trying to do their very best to empty the boat from all the water, and they know they're going to be sinking and drowning and dying and missing this great opportunity. Vega. If you have that, then your path is certain to reach the safe shore, because it's all dependent on us. We were the ones who ended up in this life, who brought us back to this life ourselves. Ultimately, our drive was strong enough to be reborn as a human being. We've practiced enough to be born as a human being. And don't blame anyone. If we're living in a corrupt world, we actually resonated with this type of frequency, of this type of lack of sila and all that. That's why we are born at this time. But what? We are born. We are alive. Still, we have the ability to live life the way we choose to live. Vega will make you reach safety with the help of the Dhamma. And for the wise person, what they'll do, they'll go switch back and forth between the two, and there's no problem with that. In fact, that's wonderful. Where sometimes the Vega is not going to stay 100% hot, compelling. Yes, it fluctuates. Yes. So sometimes you're going to find stories in the Dhamma or get a teaching from the Dhamma, and all of a sudden you realize, ooh, my Vega has been waning, has been faintly, it's not working so strongly. And that brings up. Or you see an example in the Dhamma, in the teachings, or how it's being presented to you, that suddenly you see yourself in that story, and you say, oh, I might not have a brain tumor, but I could. I know people who have. I know people who are dying. Okay, so what's to say that I'm not going to be next? So that suddenly wakes up Vega in you. So it's not a linear path. So we have to be careful of that. So it can switch, and it's lovely dance in a way. So you have to be alert, and you have to practice sati to see this and be communicating with individuals, or be exposed to the Dhamma in one way or the other. Authentic Dhamma. And don't be mesmerized or taken by or put off by the character of someone or a teacher or something like that. It's all about you and your level of Vega.